I want to talk about work, just like the reality of work. It's the concept's been in the news at least over the last week, and probably will persist into this week and maybe another week. Maybe we get 2 more weeks out of it, but um, basically, what prompted me to be inspired to discuss this is a myriad of reasons that I will talk about later, and just have that content exclusively for for founding members of Life Within Substack. So it's just a really timely conversation or topic to discuss, and I figure now is also just a really timely time for me to have the to take the time to uh, give my thoughts on it. What prompted the conversation, uh, which has been going around through all over the internet, Miss Emma Grede, Mrs. Emma Grede, Emma Grede. She is a CEO, world renowned, pretty famous. I'm not too familiar with her background. I know she has been referred to as the Kardashian Whisperer. She's been on a press tour for her new book, Start With Yourself, A New Vision for Work and Life. Um, and so on her press tour, and I watched some of the press in preparation for what I wanted to say today. Also, I took some notes. I have notes. So if I'm looking around, clicking around, I'm looking at notes. But I watched a lot of what she had to say in preparation for what I wanted to say on the topic, and I thought she I thought she made sense. I thought she was pretty sound. It made me want to consider purchasing the book. Frankly, like she was just, like, yeah, I'm with it. But I think one of the things that she said that ruffled people's feathers, um, is the point of, uh, if you are, and this was particularly targeted towards women, if you are a career woman or a female professional of some kind, and you have the opportunity to be considering work from home or work in office, uh, and one of your goals or desires with which you operate in your career space is to be ambitious and to get ahead, then you may want to consider seriously, go to office, stay in office, or a hybrid type of situation. She said it in an immigrant fashion, but that was the point, that like, hey, if you want your career to advance, you should probably go in office. Um, and be seen, and it was just that's the point of making your presence known and being seen. And as the this word keeps coming to mind, and I don't want to be disrespectful to employees or people, um, as the proletariat, as the uh, one, as the employee, yeah, as the one doing the work, receiving the paycheck, doing more of the labor than not. If you want to be, if you want to have opportunities to advance and get ahead, yes, the Zoom culture, work from home culture has been very beneficial, with respect to creating more opportunity and more capacity and more flexibility. But uh, some of those benefits aren't completely beneficial with respect to growing your career, with respect to, in some respects, meeting uh, employer expectations. Uh, and also, you have to understand, or realize, and one of the things Emma said, this is something that often isn't spoken about in the workplace or in the workspace, for various reasons, whether particularly HR, but there could be other reasons for that as well. But pr- leaders, you know, managers, directors, those in decision making positions in corporate spaces, one of the main ways in which they were able to achieve the positions that they hold is through networking, is through showing themselves and making themselves present, is through developing connections with the people that had the uh, place and space for opportunity. And so, like, yeah, when you think of it that way, I agree with Mrs. Greed on that point. I agree with her stance on the point. Like, yeah, like you gotta go. You want if you want, and all, I think that one of the main reasons why I agree is because I've seen it happen. I've seen it take place. I've heard about it. Um, a lot of the individuals that I have the opportunity to speak to um, have shared enough, if not a lot, enough of them have shared their experience and or testimony with me of how a door opened for them through networking. So it's a real reality that proximity sometimes, or certainly to a certain degree, equates value, and that value can open the door or allow you to walk into an open door uh, and occupy an opportunity. Another interesting thing that she said, and these are just like a couple quotes that uh, bring light or shed light to a bigger point that I want to hit on. But she said in an interview that work is just work, and extraordinary careers come with extraordinary work. Um, and yeah, and I think that like again, the reality of work, the revelation that like for one, God willing, you're gonna live a long life, and for two, um, throughout a large part of that life, at least in modern Western culture specifically, if not exclusively, like you're gonna have to work. You're gonna have to work. And depending on what you believe, like um, our purpose in existence is frankly to work. There was an era in time where uh, retirement, or what we now consider retirement, was a foreign concept. And you see this today where, unfortunately, you see some people who just do not stop working. Um, Older individuals who just keep working and don't want to retire. But like the idea of retirement was a fabricated concept that was brought in. I'd have to go back and do the research again and double check, but around World War II, where we just had an abundance of workers and soldiers returning, and uh, it was actually there was a push to try to demonstrate and encourage and show people what retirement could look like, what rest could look like, what getting out of the job market as a senior could look like. And in that, we began to develop this modern understanding of what retirement is. But um, even outside of that and career and work, um, is just the point of like, well, career and employment is just the point of work overall. Is it's real it's I am starting to, because even in my own life, I'm having these revelations and thoughts about the uh interwovenness of what you do with your existence. And being in a place and space where you allow that to give you purpose. Um, and so, yeah, I've been just taking the time, and I think that that's important for all of us. And really, what I want to get into when I think about and talk about the reality of work is just now might be a good time and season and place and space uh, to reframe your thinking around and about work. Another interesting thing that just happened over the past week is the Michael Jackson biopic came out, and you know, there's been a lot of good reviews, some bad reviews. I haven't seen it yet, but one of the things that has been discussed as people reflect and enjoy the music and the artist and the man and the whole thing is how much work it took for him and his family to achieve the level of success that they were able to achieve. And that's another thing. Like you just don't I think just from a real like straight up how I'm feeling perspective, I don't think that you really get to sit with or appreciate just the amount of work your desires, your goals, and your dreams take. And this is regardless of who you are. Because I do think that there is a place and space for talent and demographics and various other considerations. Uh, but that's that's a limiting factor because beyond that there still has to be a certain level of effort placed and put forth if you want to achieve a certain level of success. um, I think that one of the one of the issues or one of the things to connect with respect to work and reframing your thought process around work is just the idea of like, and I was meditating, so I was meditating on scripture when I thought about it, and I just thought about Genesis chapter 3, and that's the curse. And I think that at a high level, that's one of the main things that people like typically understand about work is like you do it for money. Most people, a plurality of people, don't like what they do, and it's cursed, And so like those were like my general preconceived notions, my first three go-tos or my first go-tos around the thought of work. And so yeah, from the biblical perspective, I thought about yeah, like work is cursed. That is a misconceived notion that but that's like the first idea that may come to your mind when you think about work is that it's cursed. And yes, there is a curse put on work, but and I don't want to get into a whole Bible study right now, but um, the point is like we were working before the work was cursed. The only difference that really changed about the work is at least one of the purposes of the work. You know, like we work to eat and to survive and to live. Now, maybe that's not necessarily what the work was first put there to do, but that's how it exists now. Um, but the reason why the work got cursed. Basically, you know, when the work got cursed, it wasn't we got cursed to work, it's the work got harder, you know, and the work got harder because of certain desires, because of certain, inclinations and decisions that were made, at least in that context, which informs how people may commonly think about work. I'm meditating on this because I'm like, this is kind of serious stuff when you think about it. Like, you know, thinking about work beyond something that just sustains you, you know. Um, I think that a righteous thing for any person to do is to work hard and ascertain and maintain responsibilities that keep you in community. Um, One of the benefits, practical benefits of having more money and those subsequent more problems that come with that more money is being involved and being connected with people, which is a good thing when you are considerate and are a human and operate humanely. And I think like that is the higher call of your work. Yes, like, and so it's we get. I think one of the difficult realities about work. Another difficult reality about working. Now you're starting to see why I wanted to title this video that. Um, it's like you really don't even know what it is, and we get begin to start engaging in freaking semantics about the concept of a work, job, career, call, profession, vocation, purpose. Like, you tell me, like, I mean, okay, I guess definitionally we can have meanings for these words, but when they all boil down, like, aren't like in some translation it means you doing something, you know? Like, it just like, but I think like that's the point of Emma Grede's comments too, from how I'm interpreting them too, is like, yeah, work is just work, like, like, to a certain degree, like, you just have to do whatever comes with what it is you have to do, you know? Yeah. I think the way you extract more meaning out of it though, because the other reality is money is a trap. Your currency is used to perpetuate community, for you to connect with people, um, which is, I think, um, indicative of a higher calling. But how your money is used versus how your money is acquired is different. So, um, people can conflate and confuse how you make an income with various other aspects of life, like, uh, who you are is and always will be more important than what you do. And again, that realignment of work is connecting with that place and space of what you do will make room for you. What you do will allow for more opportunities to come your way if that's what you need, if that's what you want. I think there, well, I think when you arrive at the place of it's not about money, it's about ambition and desire. When you arrive at that place, I think it's a more healthier um, reframing of work and understanding uh, work. Because when you approach what you do on a daily basis, or what put your soul towards, with, okay, um I want to do this for uh soul fulfilling reasons. Yes, one of them being food, clothing, shelter. But beyond food, clothing, shelter, I um I see and experience a satiating sense of satisfaction in doing, or I feel as though, because sometimes you have to work through the process and discover what that looks like for you. But whatever that looks like, I feel as though I am uh, on the path, or going towards, or am at residing somewhere in or near a place um, that meets a purpose, meets that I feel that sense of agency, that industriousness that is fulfilling a call. On the other hand, you can be in a work employed in a working situation where you don't have that deep resonance with what you do, um, but yet and still it still brings you a check, you know, and you might be getting paid well. You know, I find it interesting because I've speaken with or I've spoken with and or have encountered um, leaders, you know, CXO individuals who uh, have everything one could want with respect to a professional career, corner office, high salary, loads of responsibilities, direct reports, you know, expense cards, whatever, what have you. You know, they have the things that one can want, but they aren't happy. They aren't at peace for one reason or another, or they thought that they were going to get something that wasn't there. You know, they thought that, and that is such a good point. And no, I'm not, just excuse me, just to respect the plight. I just had a revelation in that moment of like, you know, sometimes, and this again goes back to the ambition point, which is where I think I'm going to land at here. Um, we get so caught up in arriving somewhere because we think where we get at, there's going to be something more than what's actually there when we get there. And I can relate to that where, you know, I feel like even now in my life I'm like waiting for things and hoping for things, and it's like in some respects like you've already experienced those things. You know, or there's not much else to experience, like, you know, and that's not to say that there isn't good things, you know, off in the horizon, but like, why do you keep putting your life off? You know, it's like, why do you keep putting your life off? Why do you keep oppressing yourself? Why do you keep making yourself doubting yourself and making yourself feel as though you're missing out on something, you know? So uh I feel like um, having a healthy understanding of ambition, of the fact that it takes time and a lot of hard work to accomplish anything ambitious that you have. Um, Also recognizing, respecting, and realizing that like we have to work. Like even if we didn't need to work, we would be working. You know. Um, So yeah, for me, uh, Emma Grede's comments were spot on, and I get why some people might be a little upset because it's upsetting to the new status quo that has been forming since COVID era. But that brings up another good point that I mentioned in another appearance that I had recently, and it's quite the phenomenon, but it's the idea of um, inefficiencies being put in place intentionally. When you're in an organization or you're dealing with people or some type of group situation of the sort, there can sometimes be bureaucracies or systems and or other things put in place that are in place intentionally, uh, not because they are beneficial to the project or beneficial to the mission or the purpose, but because they are beneficial to a certain group or a certain handful of individuals who are attached to the project mission or purpose. And so um there are some things in life, excuse me, there are some things in life uh or you can encounter systems, people, places, and things, situations where there are things there that are broken on purpose because somebody else is benefiting from that thing being broken. the other reality is that people need to, I think you should also, if you are a career professional, one of the other things you should also do, or just someone who is ambitious in general, one of the things that you should also do is really consider what that looks like and what that means. Like, do you want to do? And if you want to do you know what it takes? And are you willing to do what it takes to do what you want to do? You know, that's not really a conversation that I think is always had in the most robust way, or maybe it's one that constantly needs to be revisited. I know it's certainly a good one to have with um, young kids, and some good parenting that I see sometimes is um, parents who let their kids explore and try a lot of different things. And if a kid says, "Oh, I want to try this," or "I want to be this," and just letting them expose them to work. I think that one of the downfalls of society is we are um, letting our kids stay too young for too long. What's the infamous go to? The baby isn't 48, he's 4. 40, excuse me. The baby isn't 48 months. Yeah. Baby isn't 48 months old, they're 4 years old. Like, let the child grow up. Um, and I think obviously society has also modernized, and BT dubs, I don't have a kid, so I don't talk about this stuff. But that's because I just choose. I like children from a distance. I like the kids that I'm related to, and the ones that I get to encounter for situational circumstances. But other than that, just historically and circumstances, yeah, I just usually, yeah. It's like nothing against kids. I just typically stay away from them. It's just not my life. But with regard to parenting, some good parenting that I see, because I do like to remain childlike. And I'm an adult. When you're an adult, you hang out with people who do have kids, and you hear about this stuff. Baby fever and all the different types of things that may go on in a young adult's life. Mind your business. Don't worry about what I'm doing when I'm not on this camera. The point is, though, yeah, letting the kids grow up and not, keeping them too young, or insulating them from life and certain responsibilities uh, too much, because that can impact, you know, what they may choose to and want to do. I think, and it can go both ways, because even in my life, again, using my life and some of my immediate family as an example, um, I feel as though, and everything happens for a reason, but not having full evidence, or even just being practical about it. Um, if I had certain direction, and this is actually something that I'm planning on talking about in the not so distant future, maybe, but I feel as though if I had certain direction in a certain way, um, things would be different for me in a good way. Not that things aren't, you know, good now, or not to uh not not to paint a bad picture, but when I'm just in a place and in a season right now where I can almost taste what I want. And I feel like I could have been there sooner under different circumstances. The reason that I bring this up is because with respect to, yeah, fostering ambition, with respect to fostering creativity, with respect to um, becoming industrious, finding where you fit in society, uh, and understanding what is required and what it takes to fully live and operate in that space. Those are some things that come from exploration. And that's just one example that I think, parents do really well when they are parenting in that way. Um, But regardless of age and circumstance, that is just something that needs to be considered as you uh, continue to work. As you continue to work, as you continue to live and handle your responsibilities. You know, I think that another thing that could be upsetting about it too is you have some people who, from Emma Grede's comments, kind of get convicted or put on Jump Street. Like, you should probably be in the office. You know, and maybe some of us have been getting by a little bit top of the year. Maybe some of us have really just been busy, and I can empathize with both of those. uh but sometimes the truth can be convicting as well, and I do think that sometimes that's a good thing because you know honestly honestly, and I'm not saying you beat anybody. I mean, again, I'm not even gonna go there, but I'm not saying you beat on anybody or beat folk, but sometimes, a certain level of force is good for reinforcing the lesson. Main takeaway is if you want to be like the king of pop in your profession, then you have to be willing to work as hard as the king of pop did. And working from home is not working as hard as the king of pop did. Okay, founding members content.